Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I hope you're not too tired from playing poker late last night. We have a very exciting panel here today for you. Our initial idea was about AI that's going to do laundry, but it seems that doesn't work very well, so we decided to go with Fintech. We have representatives from various types of businesses here, and we're looking into having a very interesting insight into how AI and fintechs are rocking together. I will ask you to briefly introduce yourselves, because I think that's going to be way better than me doing it. So to my left, Mark, please.
Sure, very happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Mark Palfalvi, and I'm here representing PortfoLion, which is the venture capital and growth equity subsidiary of OTP Bank. We invest from pre-seed, seed, up to Series B stages in a sector-agnostic manner, managing over 400 million euros in this multi-stage setup. I'm personally focusing on early stage investing, really as early as it gets. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to connecting with as many entrepreneurs throughout the conference as possible.
Hi again, my name is Nabila Moumen. I'm still working for HubSpot, helping businesses grow their business. I'm also passionate about growth and host for Exec on AI podcast to talk with exec about AI and how to have impact with ethical.
I'm John Velissarios, founder and director of a company called Otranto Limited. Used to work for a large consulting company many years ago, and focus on the topic of digital financial markets, CBDC, digital currency topics, and helping clients navigate the complex space of technology in finance.
Hi everyone, I'm Aleksandra Brdar Turk. I come from OTP Banka Slovenia, and I'm part of the digital transformation and innovation team in OTP Bank as a cross-functional initiative that we have, introducing new technologies and making our business and our clients' lives better.
Hi everyone, my name is Emma Burrows. I am the co-founder and CTO of an agentic startup called Portia AI. We're an open source SDK for creating reliable agents that are production grade. I've been doing that for about a year, raised about 5 million in British pounds from General Catalyst as the lead. And before that, I was CTO for Stripe UK, and a long time before that, a staff engineer at Google.
And my name is Nejc. I'm co-founder of Riskaway and founder of Nlaw. I've had the pleasure of going from using AI before it was popular to building it now that is popular. And I'll try to use this experience to ask as many intriguing questions as possible. If you allow me, Barbara, can we start with you as coming from the biggest company here on the panel? You have been one of the leaders in implementing AI in large organizations in the region. So how did you see this process going from beginning, and how did you see the challenges that you had to overcome with implementing AI in a large organization? Was it the culture? Was it the workflows? Were people fighting against it? How do you remember this process?
So I have to say it was a very nice journey. We started as a group of enthusiasts and had very strong support by the management, which was amazing. And we were able to introduce one of the first AI solutions in the market with the AI-powered chatbot that could speak Slovene 5 years ago, which was unheard of at that time. Obviously today anybody can do it, but it was a big feat at the time. I think the biggest challenge that we are facing, I think it's twofold. One, which you mentioned, is the culture. So trying to change the mindset of the people that this is just a project, it's just a toy that we can use. It actually goes more into discussion of having AI as an inbuilt capability of an organization that can actually help you day to day, but using it in a smart way. Number two, I would say, is the governance. So if you have a good governance setup and you think about it in a structured way, you can actually deploy your solutions faster, more safely, but especially you can make them trustworthy, both to your clients and users, as well as to your regulators. Coming from the financial industry, this is a very important topic. So I would say those are two important takeaways. But again, I think our journey has been amazing. We haven't had many obstacles, and we're really happy to now be using AI in many, many areas. In banking, we are very fortunate to have a rich data pool from which we can, build our ideas and create our solutions. So that definitely helps.
Founders, have you listened now to this? This is a one-on-one on how to sell to big enterprise. That's what you need to understand. And Mark, that's probably what you look into when you are evaluating AI founders coming to you to raise capital.
Yes, actually, spot on. One of the fortunate... Our setup is unique in the sense that we have such a close connection with OTP Bank. And I think it puts us in a position where if we feel that a startup is working on a value proposition that can really make sense, then we can put that team in a real sales situation. Usually we invest at a time when there are no clients yet, there is no revenue or commercial data points that we could rely on. So we need to engineer these data points for ourselves. And there are many very cool vibey AI value propositions out there, but it's quite difficult to recognize the ones that can really create long-term value, especially at the stage where when we are analyzing them, and just as I mentioned, there is no data point. And just as you said, in this stage, we often try to put the startups right in front of different executives of the banking group and see how they perform. And it can potentially result in a win-win-win type of situation where we might be able to help a startup secure its first really significant potential customer. We also gain some validation and can move forward with the investment. Of course, we can potentially solve a problem for the bank as well. So, yeah, whenever it comes to new AI companies or new value propositions, we really just try to make sure that it solves a real problem. And this is our unique way of doing it, thanks to being related to the OTP group.
Perfect. Have you felt like that there has been still a huge interest in AI startups more and more coming, or do you see the market coming down already?
I would say our market was the craziest around 2021. Then there was a bit of a pause. And I would say now AI startups who can just show 500K ARR in a B2B model can raise crazier rounds than I've ever observed in my 7 years in venture capital investing. Other companies who are non-AI and might have amazing fundamentals have a more difficult time raising money than before. But I would say, yeah, the hype is still pretty high for AI companies.
Emma, you are a founder of an AI-first startup. You have sold to enterprise and you have raised from VCs. So how does what we've been hearing so far fit into the story that you've had so far?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's definitely a lot of interest on the kind of venture capital side in kind of AI startups that are trying to do production-grade agents. There's a lot of talk in the agent space about, the potential, and also a lot of talk about how companies are not seeing the return on investment necessarily from those investments into the agentic potential. And so I thought it was really interesting kind of what you were saying, which is really trying to embed AI as the core of the strategy of the company, and that means the two have to be totally aligned. Your business strategy and your AI strategy have to be the same thing. And what we hear talking to banks, I've spoken to 3 banks in the last 2 weeks, for example, and they're at completely different ends of the spectrum. You talk to one bank and they are really trying to be AI first, and you talk to another bank and they're saying, the only AI work we're doing is internal only. And to me, that is like a classic trap as to why businesses don't then get the return on investment. Because companies care about their internal processes, they definitely do, but they do not care about it as much as their customer-facing products that actually make them money. And so you get into this trap where they try and do something that isn't 100% aligned with their business strategy. It doesn't really deliver the value because the value was never there, and then the solution kind of gets blamed as a consequence. And that's why we're very focused on production grade, interesting use cases that drive business value. So yeah, lots of parallels with what you said.
Nabila, as a member of HubSpot team, you had a different story. HubSpot was pre-AI company, super fast-growing company, and then AI came. What did that mean for you from both a marketing, sales, and also product development perspective? Like how did you go about starting to introduce AI into your initially non-AI software?
Yeah, I love this question. So the reality is that we had different shifts. We were a marketing company only, then we moved to more a CRM platform. Now we're more like a platform to help businesses scale. So we had some shifts already, and when AI came, we had the chance to have a champion within the company who was the CTO, so Dharmesh. I relate to what you were saying. If we don't have a champion who really is here to drive the change, it's not going to happen. So that was the first thing that happened. Dharmesh was passionate about it. He built his own tools, and so he started to play around. He started to communicate around this, so people who were interested about the topic came and joined. So that was the first. Second is training. And this is key. If you want to change and adapt to what's happening out there, well, if you have the will, but you don't give the resources to people to follow, then they're not going to be able to follow. So how do you train people so they know what they can do, but also what they can't do? Because you want to make sure that you protect your data, you protect privacy, especially in finance, it's really important. So training people about what they can do or they can't do. And I guess the third thing is giving some space for people to play. So for example, today, right now, as we are speaking, we have Grow Day happening at HubSpot. And so we have speakers coming to train us. We are challenged, we have games. And so the idea also is to say, how can you get your people to get committed and play around this? We have a lot of conversation around this. So every team meeting, we are actually sharing use cases like, hey, this is how I'm using it as a partner development manager. How are you using it as a sales? And so sharing internally, this is how the change happens. It's like digital. It's not one single tool on the side. It's really part of the company.
Did you get customers when AI started to go mainstream? Did you get customers asking, hey, HubSpot, when are you going to add AI features?
Oh my God, yes, because again, it's not about the tool, it's about pain points. And people wanted to go faster, they wanted to scale their businesses, and they wanted to automate. So before AI, HubSpot was already offering machine learning, which is kind of AI today. So it's a way to automate tasks, and just like you get some rules and it triggers stuff. So we already were offering that, but then when our customers were looking at all these different solutions and all these different possibilities, they were coming to us and asking us, or to my partners, and they were asking, okay, how can we join the movement? And so we started developing tools, not for the sake of developing tools, but really for the sake of answering our pain points. So as a business, I think the first question is not, what's the buzzword, what's the cool thing I can implement or develop for my business, but really, what's my pain point today as a business, and what's my customer pain point, and how can I help them using AI?
John, you regularly advise central banks, financial institutions. You have a better overall view of the market. How do you see AI adoption on a wider scale? Are financial institutions that actively and in production use AI still more exotic, or is it becoming an industry standard?
I think it's becoming more accepted. I think in terms of the deployments and usage of AI, there are a number of institutions that have, I think, leading sort of the work in this area and identifying some specific sort of areas to apply AI to. And I think what I hear and I think resonates very well with me is you need to understand sort of what real business problem you're solving at the end of the day when you're using AI tools. And I think there are some specific pain points that I think lend themselves very well to be using these kind of tools. And I think you need to find those and then apply them diligently. And I think and understanding as well what the impact of that will be to the business. I think there's a number of things as well with regards to AI and the wider sort of digital finance space that I think is also important to highlight. There's a lot of benefits for using these kind of tools, because some of the problems that in finance, and especially digital finance with digital currencies and so on, have specific challenges with them with regards to how do you monitor, how do you track, how do you sort of deal with a large volume of information, and how do you detect certain patterns in that, and can you use AI to help fraud management, specific challenges that are happening in this area. And I think that identifying those key areas and key pain points and using the tool diligently, I think, is the right approach. And we see this over and over in different clients, and more, I think, in terms of organizations in finance. And I see also successful application of those as well. I was with a client last week, and we were talking about the application of AI for fraud management, and they've seen a 400% decrease in fraud rates by using these kind of tools. And it's just a phenomenal sort of success story. I'll share it with the team later, with everyone.
A common pain point of neobanks, banks, and other financial institutions is cost of compliance, back-end monitoring, and so on. Do you see AI already reducing this cost, or is AI still at a stage where it's actually a cost increase and savings are yet to be seen?
I see the reduction of the cost, I think, with some of that, because of course you're applying a tool to do certain tasks, repetitive tasks that are very costly to begin with. And I think using the tool like an AI tool to be able to reduce those costs or manage that, I think is, of course there's an upfront cost of deploying and getting those implemented, but I think that pays for itself pretty quickly.
I think that you have to look at it two ways. One is the cost of the company, and then the second is the actual prevention effect that you have on clients. So especially in what John mentioned, AML prevention, fraud prevention, we already see in a pilot stage in our bank a huge positive impact of the prevention effect, right? So it's not just about, so look at it this way, it's a whole ecosystem, like Emma said, you have to look at the value proposition. So it's not just about reducing that workload of that person or that team. It's also preventing frauds for the clients, means building more trust towards the clients, which means they will bring additional business, maybe not in this team particularly, but somewhere else in the bank, speaking from a banker's perspective, right? And I definitely agree with what John said. So I think the investment in AI is, if you do it smartly, and the governance structure internally is sound. So you have a very good training, testing, validation protocols, and of course monitoring of the results of that, so you don't get caught in the model drift or bias traps. That's where you can actually get a lot of benefits fairly quickly. And from personal experience, I've been in banking for all of my career, and it's been 2 decades and some more. It's probably the fastest return on investment we've ever seen from a user perspective. So as a company that invests CapEx into this is one of the fastest return on investment propositions you will ever have, probably for the next, I don't know how many years. I don't think there's been anything like this before. So as a startup, if you're looking at how to penetrate the market or get more clients to talk to you, this is where you can actually sell your idea. It's not about the immediate cost, it's about smartly implementing, finding a pain point, but then also looking at the big picture of what this solution is going to do for you, not in the immediate nearby surrounding area right next to the problem you're trying to solve, but also the connected ones which are definitely dependent on it or have a correlation.
If I can add on that, so we have a case with banka in Italy, and they were using AI because they saw that, so the initial pain point is they saw they were spending a lot of time to approve a loan. And so what they've done is taking this pain point, looking at the AI out there, seeing what options they have, they found some open data, they connected it with their tools, and thanks to that, they moved from weeks to approve a loan to 20 minutes, from weeks to 20 minutes. So that's a big win. Even though you're spending a little bit of money to implement this, at the end of the day, it's definitely a win for their customers.
Yeah, I just want to add as well, I think in terms of the preventing a negative thing from happening, I think at the end, from a fraud management and AML perspective, I think is a fantastic use cases, but also how do you identify the really positive ones? And I think using AI as a way to identify where you can sort of focus the attention, markets that are developing, things that are happening in the marketplace. And we've seen this, I think, in the digital currency space, where we are identifying trade corridors, looking for new patterns, where flows are happening, things that too much data to process. And can you use AI to digest this and provide you better guidance in where you can apply sort of liquidity into the marketplace and things like that as well. So there are a lot of very interesting positive use cases as well, not just preventing negative ones as well.
I have a consumer-centered question. Does that mean that I will have less forms to fill in and I will not be asked for the 10th time to fill in an AML form with the same data that was 3 months ago? And that's also a opportunity for you to ask questions using Podim app. So I challenge you to ask a more interesting question that I just asked. So who's going to volunteer if AI is going to help me so I don't need to fill in all these?
It's a very short answer, yes.
Okay, that's
so look,
great.
KYC, KYB, they've been at the pivotal moment of introducing AI to banks. Of course, fraud, risk management, AML comes later on because it's a more complex topic, but definitely yes. So we're already doing it. In some areas, we're monitoring through trying to find anomalies at an internal level. But yeah, this is one of those areas where banks will definitely go automation. And then how much of that is AI? You don't really care as a customer, right? You don't really want to know. You just want to know that this is done, it's easy, it's straight through, and you don't need to fill your forms 15 times.
One caveat I just want to add, I think just to jump in, I think as well, is that there's a challenge, of course, in implementing these, but what we need to be careful about is that there isn't sort of, not all in autopilot. There needs to be some sort of mechanism that in case your application for this thing failed, for some reason, AI didn't like you or something like that, that you actually have some human at the other end that can say, actually, there's a reason
Human in the loop.
Yeah, exactly.
Barbara, I actually wanted to follow up a little bit on what you said. How have you been, or what's your experience with measuring the effects of AI implemented in organization? Did this require a new approach, or did KPIs that you have used historically implementing software or new processes continue to apply?
So I would say 70% of existing KPIs work, right? You measure your workload, your time to market, time to yes, time to cash in banking. You measure the impact on your colleagues, the actual work that's been saved, minutes or hours or days. Then you measure also the revenue stream, right? How many new leads are you generating by this? How much less money are you spending on, CRM campaigns which are now more focused and so on. But there's also a third dimension which hasn't been present before, and this is the element which I mentioned in my first answer. If you remember, the building of the good governance environment builds trust. So the KPIs that we are now using also for AI solutions are transparency, explainability, interpretability. You didn't have this when you had a mathematical model, right? Mm-hmm. When you had a pretty straight through yes or no decision tree. Now, with machine learning and with predictive models, this is much more important. And it becomes increasingly more important. So when you have 3 different solutions which perform pretty much the same way in terms of savings, time savings, cost savings, then you have to ask yourself, which one is going to generate more trust with clients, internally with users, because users within an organization will also feel threatened. Their jobs will be threatened, their knowledge will be threatened, but also the governance perspective is, if I give these people an automated tool, like you mentioned, is it going to be on autopilot? Nobody's going to be using their brains anymore. Mm-hmm. So these are KPIs where the internal adoption is also one of those, right? I think those are the ones that didn't exist before, and we are now focusing on them as well. It's a very important regulatory topic as well. So when a regulator comes to inspect financial institutions especially, they're going to say, so how are you managing those risks? The bias, the model shift, the transparency, the interpretability.
Emma, you are building an agentic platform, essentially. So do you see organizations going a lot into at least half building their own solutions internally? Do you see a trend of buying off-the-shelf solution? And how do you see this AI story in that sense going differently that the whole SaaS industry developed?
Yeah, I think you're seeing all ends of the spectrum. I think it's becoming increasingly a new discipline to know how to code within, AI-centric systems. Certainly, we've hired engineers from AWS, from Google, etc., who haven't necessarily got a ton of experience with working with LLMs day in, day out, and it takes a little while to adapt to the fact that your system is just a little bit stochastic. It's a complete mental shift from an engineering perspective. And the reason that I say that is because that then translates to how enterprises and scale-ups are able to adopt this. It's partly, an access to talent question. And so we do definitely see companies trying to adopt it, and if they have a great fundamental engineering team, they can kind of get going with just stuff that's kind of widely available. But there are also quite a lot of companies who just don't have the expertise on how to create an eval system for the agentic applications that they're creating, and so I would say it's all different kind of ends of the spectrum. I think your second point, the point about kind of SaaS business models versus, we're open source as the kind of fundamental of our product, you will see a real change in SaaS in particular. I think SaaS is potentially going to die as we know it, because why would you deploy an off-the-shelf SaaS model when it's actually increasingly very fast to create a bespoke model that gets deployed within your own VPC, and that means you can use all of your own LLMs, etc. And so data privacy reasons, I think, will also drive substantial changes in business models. So that's also why we are open source at our heart.
Now that's a challenge to Nabila and Mark. You have investments. No, please. You have investments in SaaS businesses. You are a SaaS business. I also think that many SaaS businesses are going to die. How do you feel about that?
I actually think that they won't die completely. I think I need to believe that, otherwise I wouldn't get a salary for what I'm doing. But jokes aside, I think at the end of the day, obviously all these new AI tools will enable companies to do much more in-house than before. But I think at the end of the day, companies will still, third-party vendors will still have a place, because companies just want to have problem-specific expertise, and they also want to have customer support, and eventually want to go to someone who will be ultimately reliable for all the services that they provide, and I think many of the things will be still doable at a higher quality through a third-party vendor. But obviously, the SaaS business model and the industry will have its own challenges, and many things will shift in-house.
I think many SaaS models will be at risk, and they should definitely ask themselves what's the value they're bringing to the customer, because it's all about the value. If what you're doing can be replicated easily with another tool, then you're dead, and you have to adapt. Now, if your tool is adding value to your customer, and I believe HubSpot is, that's why I still work for them, because it's really complex, and it's actually include AI to our customer to use. And in this case, when it's really hard to replicate this value, then I think you're on the right way, but there's always a risk, so you should always keep learning and keep adapting.
In the meanwhile, audience was very productive, sent us some questions, so let's maybe jump to this. The one I thought was interesting is a question about AI voice agents engaging with customers for customer service and so on. So I actually think that this is a question I could ask across this whole panel, and would be interesting to hear your input. So if anyone wants to volunteer for this question, please show me your hand. I recently tried a networking voice AI app. It's Bordy, right? which was quite an interesting experience. And it was not the first AI agent that I tried talking to. And they became surprisingly good at giving you a feeling of natural conversation. It becomes a little bit interesting from the perspective of organizations, particularly regulated ones. So, do you trust AI to run your customer support? Do you think that's going to be part of HubSpot? Do you think that's going to, Emma, be part of your platform? John, for the regulatory side, and Mark, do you think you're going to invest in voice AI agents?
I'm happy to jump.
Go, please.
I think there's a hard question that comes with AI voice, is the trust and the transparency. So when you talk to someone, you right away project yourself with a human being just because this is what you know, and you tend to believe that it's a human being talking to you. So if the business keep this, this kind of I don't know how to say this in English, but if it's not clear that you're talking to an AI agent, then you're going to lose trust with your customer. So I think it's super powerful, and it will bring value to your business because you can focus on real conversation that brings value to your customer and leave the rest to the agents. But it's super important to be transparent when you're using them so the people can still trust you.
I think it's interesting because I agree with your point, but at the same time, the second that you tell someone it's an AI agent, they almost fundamentally lose trust just because you've told them that, Whereas if you didn't tell them, or you only told them at the point where they actually asked that question, then they would have the opportunity to gain more trust than the situation where they're immediately in a distrustful place, and they almost hold AI agents to a higher standard than you would a normal human, because there are bad customer service agents operating right now, right? We've probably all had experiences with them recently. But personally, it's not an area that we're focused on. Customer service in general is not our focus. We're much more focused on kind of processes like fraud, KYC, etc., which are kind of the heart of business operations, as opposed to the customer service layer, which I think is very well served by verticalized, focused solutions.
I just want to add one thing here to keep in mind. Fully agree. Personally, this is my perception. However, we're moving really quick, and more of us are having really great experiences with AI. And so now we're starting to build this trust that we didn't have, but that we're building as the time flows. So maybe today is not going to work great, but as we move forward.
Yeah, you almost need like a new UX model where there is a question you can ask if that is something that's very important to you, and you need to know that exists so that, trust can both be natural and built up.
From the investor's perspective, we meet lots of verticalized AI voice agents, and especially in the pre-seed seed stage when there is not a lot of commercial data points, as discussed earlier, it's a bit difficult for me to see through them and decide which one is going to really work out. I think they're definitely coming. What makes me excited is that there are some companies out there who help companies who introduce AI voice agents to test them. So they run, millions of different simulations and really try to do their best effort to trick the the AI agents to say something silly or leak some information that they're not supposed to. And I'm when it comes to AI voice agents, I'm particularly excited about companies that enable AI voice agents to really work and work in a trusted way, both by the enterprise and by the customer.
Maybe I have questions for John and Barbara, actually. Another question we got is about data security, privacy, protection. So do you see these questions? I mean, these questions are not new to using IT generally. Do you see that these concerns related to data protection, fencing it, and so on, were overhyped when it comes to AI, or were there legitimate concerns seeing how financial institutions were adopting AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a data security perspective, this is an area I've spent a lot of time in as well. There's a lot of concerns about how much information you're sharing, corporate information you're sharing, or sensitive information you're sharing with sort of these AI tools. and where is that information, being processed and so on. The other angle of it as well is thinking about it from a different perspective. Can I use AI to use it for to sort of break into systems, to actually use it for malicious purposes? So the flip side of that equation, right? So there are a lot of topics around sort of AI and information security, both from a confidentiality, data privacy perspective, as well as what can I use these tools to sort of conduct sort of malicious activities against sort of financial institutions. And these are things to consider as well. And so I think this is a broad topic. We'll spend a lot of time on this in the near future if we're not doing that, or not starting doing that already.
I think that data confidentiality was always an issue, even without AI. So it's, as John said, how much data are you sharing online with companies and what they do with them? Even before AI, we know there were data breaches, there was misuse, there was misdirected marketing based on some data that you were sharing, even on social media and so on. So I don't think AI is actually making it worse. I think what we do have, however, is a misuse of AI. So false representation of, for example, what we just talked about, of a voice agent as a person. That's number one. Number two, very good and scrutinous testing is important for a financial institution before you deploy an AI solution, so that it doesn't have bias in it. I think that's a more important risk than it is data confidentiality. Because if you do control your data confidentiality in your existing IT system, AI is not going to break that, because you're going to embed those solutions within your existing framework. But I think it's more about monitoring the bias and the model shift, which can happen through years, or you can have an undiagnosed, skewed data that you use to train the model. So those are very important things that you need to think about.
We have just enough time to finish this panel in an entertaining manner. So, Emma, if you will go first, my question is, will AI eat the world, and who or what will it eat first?
Oh, wow. I feel like I really got put on the spot for this one.
I mean, you have an agentic platform, so you are the evil person trying to eat everything or facilitate it.
I am that person. It's 100% true. Seriously, I think the serious answer to that question, I quit a pretty successful career at a large corporate to do this startup. The reason I did that was because you cannot underestimate how this technology is going to revolutionize every aspect of our lives. And it's the first time I have ever believed that so strongly, in my bones. I think we've only seen the very tip of the iceberg. So I think my answer is probably yes. It is going to eat the world, in a non sinister way.
I think the story goes, my kid asked me, so what type of tablet did you use when you were at school? The answer wasn't the green one with the chalk, but we're nearly there. So the way I think it will revolutionize the world is going to go hand in hand with the regulatory framework that's going to be built on top. So the Terminator situation probably not going to happen with the Skynet thing, taking over the world, but please be mindful on how you use it. Please be mindful of the data that you feed it, and please be mindful of how you deploy it to service your customers, because that can break or make a company. I'm not going to say the world, but a company.
I think the social responsibility side of using AI is absolutely key. I think having sort of companies and people like us and the audience and startups and so on that are planning on developing on these kind of applications and doing it in a responsible way is absolutely key, and making sure that we don't skew too far off track.
So if I was AI and you didn't see me yet, I would say, I'll be back. But the real answer, I guess, is I think AI will eat all the people that don't have real intent. And the thing is, it makes your life so much easier that you easily stop thinking and you just start following, and you just become like, no sense, like you take a direction that is not yours and you're living a life that is not yours. So it will eat these kind of people that don't put intent in their life. And so my advice to you is, what value do you want to bring? What is your intent for you, for your business, and for your customers?
I agree
with the things that have been said. From a venture capitalist perspective, I also think AI will potentially the word. Maybe I'll just add a final thought here. I'm excited about all the new jobs that will need to be done because AI will be part of our everyday life. So we've recently made an investment into a company that is aspiring to help enterprises to manage non-human identities. So trying to help companies manage the chaos of service-to-service accesses and service-to-service communication. When all these AI agents will arrive and will become part of our everyday life, we'll need to be very conscious of which service has access to what other service in the background, because in order to enable those AI agents to do the work that we want them to do, there will be just multiple accesses across the software stack, and that, for example, is going to be a new problem that we will need to solve. And I think AI will eat the word, and I'm looking forward to seeing what new problems that's going to cause for us, and what new opportunities that will create for us to solve and finance.
Thank you very much for your thoughts, for your knowledge. Thank you for your attention. Don't get eaten by AI. Go out and eat others. Thank you very much.
Thank you.